Welcome to the shortest episode of this podcast.
You think so?
Yeah. We watched The Maltese Falcon from 1941, and it sucked.
The end.
Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I think we would be remiss if we just completely wrote it off.
Oh, crap. I'm looking it up right now, and Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is another film that's coming up, is directed by the same guy.
Okay, well, here's one thing that I read.
Oh, it was his first movie.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry. So I guess I was reading your mind there.
Or reading your phone.
Well, maybe I was reading my phone, but okay. Right. So before we dive in, here's the log line. San Francisco private detective Sam Spade takes on a case that involves him with three eccentric criminals, a gorgeous liar, and their quest for a priceless statuette, with the stakes rising after his partner is murdered. That's a way to make it sound exciting. Yes. More exciting than it was.
This is the problem with Gone with the Wind. How we talked about how I can't remember what that lady's name was, the maid.
The maid?
In Gone with the Wind.
Hattie McDaniel?
Yeah. Where she was describing this like interesting scene where they're like, oh, and then we're fighting and they were doing this, and it's like, why don't you just show us that? That's what this movie is.
Yep.
It was tell, not show.
So much tell, not show.
I only think that's effective if like it's in a situation where it makes sense not to see it. But so much of this movie is just, let me tell you about this thing and let me describe to you what this interesting scene would have been where
Yeah.
Where the femme fatale, caught this person and there was a chase and then they shot at them and it was like
it was so much just like talk, and so much of it was just like, they would go on for like minutes, and then Humphrey Bogart would be like, that's all lies, and she's like, oh yeah, maybe, whatever. It's like, why are we dedicating screen time to this?
It's so hard to follow when, I understand.
It was hard to follow. It was boring.
She's unreliable narrator, but I feel like there's a more interesting way to portray that than wasting our time with all this exposition dumping. Like
so much exposition.
I love dialogue heavy films, but I love it when you feel like you're learning something about the character, or like there's some kind of intimacy between the characters, like shared friendship, or just like the dialogue being interesting, talking about like anything, in mumblecore movies, that kind of style. It's often that. With this, it was more like, let me tell you the history of this bird. And it's like, I don't care. That's not relevant to now.
Right.
All I could think about was, to paraphrase Will Ferrell, was this bird could star in a TV show called Birds I Don't Care About.
Well, this movie made me realize something. And speaking of birds, the audio listeners won't be able to hear this, but the YouTube viewers, here's a little Maltese Falcon stand-in. It's my Blathers amiibo from Animal Crossing. Shh, we're trying to do a podcast. So this movie made me realize something that it did not occur to me before watching that, but it probably should have, which is that I don't like hard-boiled detective movies.
They're not my fave, which you would think I would love it, because I love detectives and I love murder mysteries.
Yeah, me too. Like I like Sherlock.
Yeah.
But like the film noir, and let me be clear, I like film noir, but the film noir style, like hard-boiled detective in the trench coat and the fedora, is just like, I didn't like this. I barely liked Chinatown. I didn't like Blade Runner. Dry Town was something that we all had to kind of grit our teeth to get through, but it had a certain
short film.
Had a certain charm.
Sure.
I would say the closest thing to a hard-boiled detective story that I enjoyed was Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
If you can call it that.
Yeah, for sure.
But
but it's more of like a play on it.
Like Chinatown, I was able to respect. I was like, objectively, this is good, but subjectively, I don't care.
There was problems I had with it, but I found it more interesting than this movie.
This movie was boring.
Yeah, it was boring. There
Couldn't
was
wait for it to be over.
some things I liked about it. I found the shots to be framed really well, and I liked the mise en scène, the way that they would stack characters and scenes. There would be 3 people, and like the way they position them, I felt like that was good. There was a lot of good camera movements where they did like dollies in, dollies out. There's a scene where Wilmer is like coming out of a daze and he like looks and sees like shots of each of the characters. I thought that was pretty good.
That was nice.
But story-wise, this script, man, like it was based on a book and it got, heavily rewritten to fit the Hays Code
Okay.
because it was a lot more like sexual drinking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, get that
They
get that
wouldn't
crap out of there.
that they wouldn't allow, which is probably part of the reason why you don't see the interesting action scenes.
Great.
They
Well,
had to
why
cut
bother
back
making
on
a
that.
movie about it
I
then?
know.
Why even bother?
You would think it would be based on a stage play for all the amount that they just sit around and talk. But it was based on a novel of like the author, I believe, was a detective, and it was like kind of based on his life, from my understanding
Cool.
of the quick research I did on it.
Again, I
Yeah.
like film noir. Like, I feel like Sunset Boulevard is a good sort of like film noir mystery story, but it's not like a hard-boiled
Yeah.
detective thing. Like this hard-boiled detective, like I was excited to watch this because
Yes.
I was like, I feel like this is the definitive hard-boiled detective
It
film noir movie.
it is, because if you think of any other film noir movies or any parodies of it, or like if you stir any feelings about film noir, it's like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Black and white, low-key lighting, fedoras, people with guns.
Dry Town.
Yeah.
Let me give Dry Town a bit of a pass here because I feel like, as much as we rag on Dry Town, which is just, again, like a silly little
Well, we were
short
young,
film that we did in first year of college, I think objectively Dry Town is more interesting than the Maltese Falcon.
because it's at least like comedic.
It's fun. It's funny.
Yeah. My problem with this is I think it could have been good.
Right.
Except the script was bad.
And by the way, sorry to interrupt, but previous episode we were struggling to remember the name of the character in Dry Town.
Right.
It was Rex Thompson. I remembered it after.
That's pretty funny, honestly.
Right. Okay. Go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Right. So from a directorial standpoint, I think the director did the best he could with not that great of a script.
Disagree. But go ahead.
Okay, so it was his first movie, and in the Wikipedia page, it talks about how he wrote down like every shot he wanted and even included sketches with it, which is basically like a storyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to stick to being on time and on budget and like not have to cut any scenes out because, he wasn't maintaining his schedule. And I'm like, that's like, how was that not the norm before? To do like a storyboard and like keep it all tight and like,
yeah,
really know what you're going for ahead of time in pre-production.
Well, good on him for that, but I just found it so wordy and just like it didn't,
not his fault.
It didn't grip me at all. I wasn't given a reason to care. I was just confused, especially when they started giving reasoning for why the characters were doing certain things, and then immediately after being like, well, that was all lies, so just like whatever, maybe you'll find out later. Like I was like, I don't want to find out later. You haven't given me a reason to care. There's no stakes really. I just couldn't wait to be done watching it
because we know nothing about the detective prior to meeting the femme fatale.
I wonder if Detective Pikachu is any better. I never ended up watching.
I don't know. I mean, I would watch it just for like the vibe, like just for fun. It feels like it could be one of those movies where it's like you just throw it on, have a good time, not really like doing film critique of it.
Like Dry Town.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll throw in Dry Town right now.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Dry Town.
You're in it.
The ugliest little place on the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you did like
for
a
like
brief little
a
cameo.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you know nothing about the characters before you meet them, like in the office, and there's murder. People are after a valuable item that they're all trying to get, and like all those elements should create an interesting story, but it's more like people talking about wanting to get the item instead of like actually seeing it.
Mhm.
And I feel like a better scenario of this is the Indiana Jones movies. Like they're after the Ark of the Covenant,
Right.
or, you know,
But but instead
anything
of just
else.
talking about wanting to find it,
Yeah.
they actually go out and try and find it. Like
Yeah.
he's like,
So it makes it interesting.
I've been after this thing for 17 years. It's like, oh, great. I'm sure you had some interesting adventures along the way. Could we not see those? Or are we just going to see people talking about those adventures in ostensibly a regular like hotel room or just living room?
Yeah, that was pretty bland, honestly. Like, there's so many things that they could have done with it to, to show that, her character's untrustworthy instead of just like she's saying like she's lying, and the detective, like, knowing that he's smart and he knows what he's doing, and, that he's able to investigate. Like, we didn't actually see him really investigate. Like,
No, not at all.
things just kind of happened to him.
Yeah,
And
the
that doesn't
Maltese
make him
Falcon
smart.
landed in his lap. Well, I mean, it ended
Literally.
up not being the Maltese Falcon, I
Yeah, but it
guess,
was
but
some fake thing. And I thought in the end, like, when he was on the phone being like, "Hey guys, why don't you go and find the people that are leaving the hotel that I got?" And then he like shakes Miss O'Shaughnessy, the femme fatale, being like, "Tell me that you did it. Tell me that you killed him." And then she's like finally confesses, and then like the detectives just like show up at his house, and he's like, "Yeah, she did it."
it was a very boring ending.
Yeah.
Especially because I thought they were going to reveal that the fake Maltese Falcon was actually the Maltese
Yes,
Falcon.
exactly.
Nope.
That like he like switched it out to fake them out, or that it was like re-enameled or something. He's like, "It's the stuff that dreams were made of."
Yeah, he's like, all right, everybody, listen. I'm about to drop an iconic line on you guys. I'm going to get real close to the microphone. It's the stuff dreams are made of. It's like, wow,
Great.
Well,
I guess it's the idea of you're chasing more like an idea than a thing, but like
that's boring.
Indiana Jones did that. Like, I don't know. There's just better ways to do it.
It does make me want to watch Indiana Jones.
Absolutely.
Much better films.
I mean, so like some of the shots were cool. Like the shot of her in the elevator with the shadow on her face. Like the cinematography was pretty good.
If you say
But
so.
like like I feel like Veronica Mars, like they legitimately show her actively investigating and doing things to find out things about characters to figure things out. Whereas this guy just kind of walks around, smokes, drinks, and then people just kind of like show up and they're like, "Yeah, do you have this thing? I'll give you like $1,000." He's like, "No, but I'll figure it out." Like, who cares?
It's hard watching this coming right off of watching Citizen Kane, because Citizen Kane had so much going for it. And I think the stark difference between the two is that the Maltese Falcon had some good style, decent style.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane also had some good style. We called the plot in Citizen Kane serviceable, not amazing, but serviceable. I think the plot of Maltese Falcon didn't even make it to serviceable. I was like checked out.
No, I file it in under potential for a remake.
Yeah.
Whereas, like American Werewolf in London, that's another movie that I think could be like super, super awesome if they just did some tweaks. And I feel the same way about this, is like all the ideas they have going for it could be interesting. Kind of like an Indiana Jones style movie, but it's, black and white. And, it's about a detective, figuring out this bird thing. Like it could be good, but it's
maybe
just, I don't know. Like I was reading in the Wikipedia page that there was a 7-minute long take that they didn't cut. I'm like, didn't even notice. And when they utilized it, can you guess?
In a dialogue scene?
Yeah, not a pivotal.
It wasn't pivotable at all.
A pivotal moment, like, in Rope, they effectively use a long takes to show that everything's going quick and to show like the heightened of time, and like, the intensity of things.
Mhm.
For this, they use a 7-minute long take when Fat Man is doing his exposition dump about the bird and like how it's changed hands over the years. And it's like, you did a 7-minute long take of a guy just like talking to a camera, and like it wasn't even like anything like that important to know. It wasn't like a pivotal, oh my gosh,
Well,
it
yeah.
wasn't like an important and emotional stakes scene.
No, well, it's funny too, because like I feel like some people might consider that pivotal because it's like, oh, it shows why everybody's after the bird. But it's like
I
you
don't
don't even
care.
really need to know that. You just need to know that they're after it. Doesn't matter why they're after it. It's a MacGuffin.
Yeah, they told us in the beginning that it was super valuable.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
You don't even need to know that. It's just like people are after this thing. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You could maybe throw in like, we want it because it's precious or like valuable. Sure. Like to give some kind of a reason, but I don't need the whole history of why it's so important. It's like if Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, like they're after the cup, right?
In the Last Crusade, yeah, they're
Yeah.
after the goblet of life. They're after the
Yeah.
Holy Grail.
It's like if they just did like a 10-minute explanation of the Bible. They're like, okay, let me tell you why this goblet of fire.
What? I'm thinking of the wrong story.
Said that on purpose. Why this goblet of life is important. Okay, so there's this man named Jesus, and he did these things, and it's like, we don't need to know that. They're after it.
I'm sure they explain. They explain it a little bit.
Maybe in like one scene. I feel like every other scene in this movie is like, or almost every scene in this movie is explaining like, okay, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And it's like, can you just give me more scenes like we saw in the beginning where, spoilers, where Miles gets shot, and we don't know who did it. Let's see more of that. Let's see suspense. Let's see more intrigue. They're just leaving it all out there.
For the record, I'll give Indiana Jones a pass for explaining, the significance behind what they are after, because in Indiana Jones, it actually does have more significance. Like the fact,
archaeologist.
Well, yeah, but the fact that the Holy Grail can bring people back to life or heal wounds or whatever has implications later in the movie because it saves Indy's dad, and the fact that the Ark of the Covenant, has certain meaning behind it, has implications later in the movie when they try to open it. Temple of Doom, I'm not gonna, I haven't seen it in a while.
It's like Chekhov's gun, right? Like they're like, we're telling you this is important because we're giving you a reason for why it's going to become important, and not just telling it for the sake of telling it. They're telling the audience so that the audience is clued into something that they need to know for later. Right?
Yeah, with the Maltese Falcon, you didn't need to know any of that.
You don't need to know any of it. Because in the end, they didn't even have it.
Yeah, it could have been a sculpture of poop for all the movie cared. Like, the sculpture of poop was pooped out by a dinosaur, and it changed hands, and now it's just still a sculpture of poop, and I really want it. It's like, okay, well, that's great. Does it matter at all?
No, because it would have been different if, we found out that Sam was in financial trouble. He's having trouble keeping like his company afloat, and he needed something like this. So it gave some kind of motivation as to why he cares about this stuff at all. And he's like, oh, this would be really great to like have my financial troubles worried. And then it's like, oh, this is a valuable object. It makes sense why he has like some kind of stake or interest in it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's the same with Uncut Gems. I didn't have enough of a reason to care, so I didn't.
Yeah, because, he was a gambler, and it's like, why don't you just stop? And like, clearly he's addicted, but it's like, you put yourself in this trouble. Like, it's like this all could have been avoided.
Okay, I'm going to give this 4 out of 10.
Wow.
I know that's low, but it's just how it made me feel,
It was okay. It felt like one of those movies, and I do say this a bunch. It felt like one of those movies that's playing on TV in a movie. You know what I mean? In a
Yeah.
better movie.
In the background of a better movie, yeah.
Yeah, like, kind of like with the Home Alone thing. Like angels that don't have no souls or whatever that's
Angels
called.
with filthy souls?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that too, honestly. From
Yeah.
Home Alone, I was
And
thinking about
and
that.
those clips are better than this movie. Snakes. Snakes.
What?
Snakes at 10%.
Okay. Do you have a rating? Should I just read some random pieces of trivia? I didn't even vet the
Uh,
trivia beforehand. I usually do, and I come
right.
up with a list, but I just couldn't be bothered.
I thought that Humphrey Bogart was gonna be better because
He was fine. He's no Cary Grant.
no, not by a long shot.
And I didn't, I saw Cary Grant in North by Northwest, and I didn't even think he was that great in that. I liked him in His Girl Friday, but he's
charismatic. Yeah.
way more charismatic and
Yeah.
magnetic than Humphrey Bogart.
Agreed. I mean, he fits the sort of hard-boiled detective, but I don't find that interesting. For something like Veronica Mars, it's like, well, they gave her reasons as to why she was kind of bitter. Like, she has good reason to be bitter.
Hmm.
We don't know why Sam is bitter. And frankly, I don't care. It's a movie. It's serviceable. I'll give it like 6 out of 10.
6. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm only seeing like one piece of interesting trivia, and it's the
Okay.
very first one. 3 of the statuettes still exist and are conservatively valued at over $1 million each. This makes them some of the most valuable film props ever made. Indeed, each is now worth more than 3 times what the film cost to make. That is egregious. Who cares? They're
Well,
made of lead and plaster.
it's what it
What does
represents,
it matter?
I guess.
It's not even a good movie, people.
Well, if you think of everything as we apply intrinsic value to things, where it's like, a lot of things are just made out of raw materials of the earth, like cameras. We deem it to be expensive, but it's made of like plastic and metal and glass and stuff.
Well,
so
I agree it is perceived value, but this is
Yeah.
why I find prop making and prop replicas a lot more interesting than collecting real props, right?
yeah,
Because
that's boring.
let's say you were a prop collector and you collected the original Luke Skywalker lightsaber from the original Star Wars, and you
Yeah.
hold it in your hand. That's pretty cool to have, and
For, like,
it
oh,
looks
yeah.
awesome, and you can hold it, and you feel like you pulled it right out of the movie.
If you put it on display.
Right. If you were to make that same prop, it would be equally as awesome. It would be visually stunning, and you'd be able to hold it, and it looked like you pulled it right out of the movie, and that's great. It's an awesome prop. It's well designed. If you were to buy for $1 million or whatever the Maltese Falcon prop that was used in the movie, okay, that's cool. You, I guess, have a piece of film history. But if you were to make that same prop out of like casting lead or like whatever, you'd be like, what am I going to do with this? Why do I have this? This, like, it doesn't even look aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
It's just like a bird statue that's like smooth.
I have a problem with like mass collecting of things unless it's like for historical purposes, like if Lego has an archive of like all of their different types of sets. It's like, well, that's cool. That could be in a museum, part of pop culture. Sure. That kind of thing makes sense. But like having just like straight up movie props where it's like, yeah, I spent $1 million on that and like I know it's the real thing. But like
who cares? That prop is
like,
famous because it was used in a movie. You're not going to be famous because you own the prop.
Yeah, like I understand spending money on things, but it just, I don't know, stuff like that seems like a waste of money. Like I understand investing in nice clothes to wear because it's like, okay, well you could get like a lot of use out of that. You could wear like expensive items all the time, stuff like that. But like something that's just gonna collect dust, I'm like, why?
Yeah, it's like anytime a musician gives away a guitar that they used, or like Tony Hawk gives away a skateboard, I'm always like, I hope the person that he's giving it to uses that thing and like beats it to hell.
Yes,
And really like gets years and years of use out of it, because that's what those things are designed to be used for, is to be used. Like give away a guitar, learn to play guitar, play the bejesus out of that guitar.
Yeah.
You know, you give away a skateboard, learn to ride that skateboard, right?
There's no point in being precious with this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
why let it collect dust?
Yeah, that's what I have a problem sometimes with, people that have means where they're like, I spent $3,000 on this Pokemon card and it's gonna sit in like a desk and I'm gonna pull it out once in a while. And like, it's like, there's a lot of other things you could have done with that money.
A
I
lot of
don't
more
know.
productive things.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
And like all the time and energy that you spend researching these things and bidding on them and like whatever, you could be doing something far more productive with your time.
I mean, and I don't want to be like a total snob. Like, I like spending money on things. I have somewhat bourgeois taste at times. But like it should be things that like you can utilize and that will bring you a lot of joy each time that you get to use it. I feel like otherwise it just seems like a waste that, could be spent on making this world people feel better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would say the only thing that I really collect is like Toy Story toys. I collect like I have a little display of that represents like Andy's toys from Toy Story. But I collect those because at night they come alive and they walk around the room, and that's real cool. That's important to me. So that they're getting used, they're using themselves, and that's fine, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not crazy. You're crazy.
The other day, the door like closed by the wind or something, I guess, but it was just like completely out of nowhere where it just like clicked shut.
Yeah.
And you're like, huh? What happened? And I was like, huh, where'd Woody go?
And I was like, what?
To make it seem like that Woody just walked out the door.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about something else. we
don't have to talk about anything.
Let's talk about movies. It's a movie podcast. So we just came back from the Mayfair a few hours ago, the Mayfair Theater in Ottawa, where we saw Still, a Michael J. Fox film or movie, whatever. That's the official title. It's not just Still. It's like Still, a Michael J. Fox film.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good.
It was pretty good. We watch a lot of sort of celebrity, like documentary type stuff.
Do we?
Well, we watch a lot of documentary type stuff, I suppose.
Do we?
Yeah.
Once in a while. Maybe more than the average person.
Yeah. Well, you also work in documentary film of sorts, so.
Short form. Yeah.
Yeah. So I found it engaging on some level that they weren't doing the same sort of things that all documentaries do. Like, I found it interesting that they read excerpts from his books and then sort of like recreated the scenes and like mashed it together with like films and TV shows he's been in. That was fun. There was some good use of editing throughout the film for sure.
The editing was definitely my favorite part. So like essentially what they would do is they filmed new scenes with actors walking around pretending to be Michael J. Fox and the people associated with him, but without showing his face or most of their faces. And then they would they would show these scenes as Michael is narrating his story. And then they would do like a match cut where they would cut from those recreated scenes to an actual clip of Michael J. Fox at the time wearing the same clothes, like stepping onto set or like getting out of bed or whatever. And I was like, this editing is brilliant. In
particular, the sequence of him going back and forth between Family Ties and Back to the Future.
Yeah,
that was a lot of that.
That was awesome.
And they showed clips of him on Family Ties where they're like, "You're working 2 jobs? Like, how are you gonna keep up with this?"
Yeah, they must have like scoured the episodes of Family Ties to find like just individual lines that were relevant to the scene where like, they'd play a clip of Michael on Family Ties being like, "Oh, that's my ride. I gotta go." And then smash cut to the new filmed footage of him like getting in the car, going on set. And then they'd play a real clip of him walking onto the set of Back to the Future. It was very effective storytelling.
Fun. And they had like, I want to say it was like maybe sort of CG'd or maybe they mixed it with set design. They like recreated like, like the Tonight Show green room.
Right. Yeah.
His like studio apartment and stuff like that. And like, I found that to be interesting as well. So.
Yeah. My main criticism, honestly, was that it wasn't long enough. It seemed like it ended way too soon. I thought it was going to be 20 minutes longer.
They mostly focused on the highlights of his career and like I would say like mainly stuff in the 80s and 90s, and then they kind of like briefly touched on like, you know, what he's been doing lately with like his Parkinson's Foundation.
Right.
And like, you know,
Briefly,
that he
very, very
he has
briefly.
like a happy family, and you know, they showed him doing like what?
Did you hear that little squeak?
Was that me or
I don't know. Okay, go ahead. Maybe
you
it
know.
was Stuart Little sneaking around.
Oh yeah. Demi Adijuwebe, where he's like Big Stu riding up to the big boy table
In his convertible.
Yeah.
While Snowbell eats on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So true.
Back to the film. You're yucking yourself up over there.
Yeah. So there's some good scenes with the family. Like they were like kind of like making fun of him for like being bad at texting and stuff like that. And it was they seemed happy, and
it was a fun time.
It was good glimpses into his life, and I feel so bad. Like, I mean, obviously, like having to go from such a like height in your career, and you know, have to deal with like such a major life change. But it seems like he's dealing with the cards that were dealt to him in the best way he can, and he's at least in a privileged position that he can manage his pain with like the best people, and you know, be able to afford like physical therapy and stuff like that. So
I would give it 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
And you?
It was fun. I feel like you always make fun of me because I don't immediately give my score. I give a reasoning as to why I'm giving a score.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least you're self-aware about it.
Yeah. So it was fun, but I feel like they could have included more stuff in like the second half of his life, perhaps, but maybe there just wasn't much to tell. I don't know. What I will say is I wasn't constantly looking at the theater clock when we were watching it. So
yeah, that's always a good thing.
It's a good time. And it was so strange because we went to the movies when it was light out, and then we came out of the movies and it was still light out. I was like, this like never happens.
Yeah, we got time enough to watch the rest of the Maltese Falcon and record the podcast.
So I'm going to give it like 8 out of 10. Yeah. Pretty good.
Pretty much. Tetris. Should we talk about Tetris?
Yeah, let's briefly touch on Tetris.
All right. The story of how one of the world's most popular video games found its way to players around the globe. Businessman Hank Rogers and Tetris inventor Alexei Pajitnov joined forces in the USSR, risking it all to bring Tetris to the masses.
Another Apple TV movie.
So Tetris ended communism, basically.
That's kind of how they made it seem.
I mean, it's historically accurate, right? That's what happened?
Politics were definitely a part of it.
I mean, anytime a movie is made that's based on a true story, they follow the beats exactly, right?
They really should.
Factually. Because otherwise, I don't know how I'm going to come to terms if you're going to tell me that there was not a car chase to the airport in Moscow with Minoru Arakawa, Alexei Pajitnov, and Howard Lincoln and Hank Rogers running away from like the KGB, driving and smashing into cars. You're telling me that didn't happen in real life?
That sounds like video game nerd fan fiction.
It is. It really is. So to touch the ground here for a second, I can almost guarantee you that did not actually happen. But that's
they said as much, I would say.
That's kind of the way that this film plays with the truth a little bit. Like I think most of it is factual.
They're just heightening the situation.
Towards the end, they really kind of Hollywoodize it just a bit too much. But
to make it interesting.
It was fun at the very least. And I enjoyed that about it.
Taron Egerton.
You want to give that another try?
Oh my gosh, I'm such a mush mouth. Taron Egerton is, you know, lovely as always. He was funny.
I like him.
There was one scene in particular where he like goes up to Alexei and he's like, "Didn't think I would come back, would I?"
Yeah, he had a lot of great like charisma in this.
Yeah.
The only problem is that he's playing a man who is of like partial Dutch descent, partial Indonesian descent.
Yeah, it was a little iffy.
The guy who he is playing is not white.
He's like brown.
Taron Egerton is quite white.
They look nothing alike.
That was a bit weird. I've watched interviews with Hank Rogers. Hank Rogers didn't seem to mind, so that's good, I guess. But odd choice.
Yeah. Considering the guy that played Alexei looks a decent amount like Alexei.
Yeah. And he seems like a nice guy, too.
Yeah. Overall, that movie was fun, but I feel like, I don't know, we need like a glow up. I feel like at the time I said, oh, okay, this is what I said. I was like, this movie is the Jobs, like Ashton Kutcher Jobs.
Yep.
And what we need to see is like a Steve Jobs version of Tetris.
Yeah.
Like big Hollywood movie, Oscar bait, like that kind of thing. Like all the stops, Tetris, where we see like a Russian interrogation scene and it's raining and it's dark outside. Like Danny Boyle with the shareholders meeting. I don't know. I feel like we could do it. This is another movie where I'm like, there's so much potential here.
I mean, I love
For
Steve
sure.
Jobs, so definitely. I would
Absolutely.
love if they were going to make another version of this story, because I do think it's an interesting story. I know it's like a lot of legalese and it's about like distribution rights, but I find that
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
find that interesting. What I would have loved if they had touched a little bit more on it was the actual creation of Tetris, like the thought process and the programming it, and just more of Alexei Pajanov's story before
They
he even met
did
Hank Rogers. A
a
little bit.
little bit.
I will say, like, I'm a little bit overly familiar with this story, especially before having gone into
Yeah.
the movie, because I both watched an hour-long documentary by the gaming historian about it
I as well.
multiple times. It's a great video. Definitely look it up on YouTube if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Probably better than the movie.
Oh, definitely better and more historically accurate. But I've
Yeah.
also read a book about it that's like sort of like a graphic novel representation of the same story, expanded just a little bit, and I highly recommend those. They're fascinating, more so than the movie. So maybe I went into the movie with a little bit high expectations, but I did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun.
There were some fun elements. I like the 8-bit transition scenes.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It's just like it's one of the kinds of movies, along with the Mario movie, that like I'm just happy that it exists.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm happy that it exists. I'm happy that decent money and decent scripts are being thrown towards movies that have to do with video games.
They realize there's a market now.
Yeah. Well, video games are a lot cooler than they used to be. I'll be honest with you, because like when I was a kid, the only video games that were cool were like Grand Theft Auto, FIFA,
like popular, you mean?
maybe Call of Duty, right? And
Yeah.
when I was a kid, back in the lonely days of 2004, when I was running around in a homemade Link costume, with everybody being like, "Were you just as Robin Hood? You Peter Pan?" I felt like I was the only one on the planet
Right.
who liked Legend of Zelda. I felt weird for liking Legend of Zelda. And now the release of the new Zelda just a couple of days ago is like news, you know?
For sure.
There's news stories like, oh, people are lining up around the block for Zelda because like it's one of the most anticipated games of the last few years. And I would have never guessed that we would progress to that point when I was a kid, because it just felt so lame to like Zelda.
I think just things like video games, more niche titles, were less accessible to the general public. Whereas with the internet now, there's so many pockets and so many niche communities where it's a lot easier to find your tribe, so to speak.
Right.
Find the other nerds that felt like they were the only one that enjoyed Legend of Zelda as kids. And then, you know, that community educates people that are tangentially interested and gets them involved. Bigger community that way.
Well, it's kind of how same sort of reason why Hank Rogers and Alexei Pajanov became friends, is because they felt, you know, lonely. They felt like
Kinship,
they were the only ones who liked, you know, discussing that kind of stuff, and you know, they made that connection.
Yeah, because they were both computer programmers coming from that background. They showed a scene of that in a movie where Hank is talking to Alexei and he's like, "Hey, I wondered why you didn't do this and that." And he's like, "Well, I never thought of it." And then like showed them collaborating. And so I think that was a good representation of that real friendship, because they own that company together now, the Tetris company.
Yeah,
So.
they're still buddies.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
So I gave it 8 out of 10, also known as 4 out of 5. How about you?
I'm going to give it a 7 because I feel like there's a lot of room for potential.
Mm-hmm.
but it was an enjoyable enough watch.
Yeah.
But go watch the Gaming Historian video if you are interested in pop culture. I'm not as big into video games as Andrew, but I enjoy the history of things. So,
Gaming Historian, by the way,
yeah,
is one of the best channels on YouTube,
for sure.
especially these days. Like the content that he's making, just absolutely high caliber stuff, very entertaining,
Mhm.
very classily put together.
I
It's
think
great.
my favorite video of his is the history of parental ratings on video games.
Mm.
All that stuff is quite interesting. I think that's like another hour long one.
I love his long videos
Yeah.
especially because like the Tetris one also leads into like his other video
Oh, yeah?
about like Atari suing
Ooh,
Nintendo,
interesting.
and
Oh,
it's a
because
whole rabbit hole.
because the guy that was distributing like said that Atari could have it, but like he actually didn't have the rights yet. So is that why
Yeah,
Atari sued Nintendo?
yeah, like
Yeah.
they didn't have the rights to publish Tetris for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and then they did it anyway.
Right.
But then also they did it in a way that was not licensed by Nintendo. Like Nintendo needs to give their seal of quality and approval or whatever
Right.
to whoever publishes games for their systems, and they need to like buy cartridges or whatever.
True.
Atari was like, no, we're gonna do it our own way. We're gonna make our own cartridges. So they were kind of like, is double jeopardy the right word? You know, double
tell
trouble.
me.
I tell you.
No, like you need to explain what you're
Oh,
talking
just
about
like
first.
they were in the wrong for distributing Tetris, which they didn't have the rights to, and then they were also wrong for producing unlicensed NES games, which Nintendo did not allow.
Okay, if we're gonna be technical, double jeopardy in terms of trial stuff is you cannot be tried for the exact same crime twice. So if they said that you were not guilty, you know, of, let's say you murdered someone or, you know, they found you guilty and you served your time, and then they found out for some reason that that person wasn't murdered, well, then it's like you can't be convicted of that crime again. So
Double jeopardy,
now
we
you
are
can murder them.
fine.
Yeah. What is we are fine?
There you
So
go.
it's only the exact crime you can't be on trial for again.
Okay,
So
not really what I meant, but I
I
just meant they were in the wrong twice over. And there's another whole video about that, which again, this is the kind
Yeah.
of stuff that I find fascinating.
Absolutely. And I find murder fascinating for some reason.
Andrew, this is the kind of stuff that I find fascinating. Hannah. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody has their things that they're like really nerdy about. It's like, I just want to know all about this thing. And it may not make sense to everybody, but like it's just what you like.
It's just your thing.
Yeah, like you said, you love comparing two things that are similar but different. That's like one of your
That's one of my favorite things, 100%.
Let's listen to this one song and then let's listen to the remastered version, and let's listen to the demo version, and like listen to it again.
The live version also.
Absolutely.
Just back to back to back, and then you got to go back and listen to the first version again, so it's fresh in your mind to compare. Pick out the little differences.
Let's watch all the openings to Smallville and watch how they change.
Is that an offer? Like you're willing to go through that again? Because
we've already done that.
I know, and I've been looking
seen
for
the
an
show.
opportunity. Well, you know, I've never seen a single episode of Smallville, but that doesn't mean that I can't watch every single opening to every single season and compare.
Absolutely.
Did you just wink at me?
Not intentionally, but I will wink at you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything more to say about this. The Maltese Falcon is Dookie. And I mean, literally, the statuette looks like Dookie. It may as well be Dookie.
It's black and white.
It's black and white. And I'm ready to be done with it.
Yeah.
You're not going to find me rewatching this.
I wish it was good.
Let's just go watch
What a
Dry
shame.
Town.
Yeah, I guess so. Well,
All right.
I'm looking forward to, I think the Treasure of the Sierra Madre is next. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully that's better.
It's next on the list right now because Maltese Falcon was 1941. Treasure of the Sierra Madre was 1948. We also have on there Red Shoes, which is also 1948.
Is it?
But yes.
Interesting.
But I am looking to bulk out the list a bit and put in some. Yeah, because we're jumping from 41 to 48. That's 7 years worth of movies.
Could do a movie in between.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that's like a strong draw. But
what's
see.
on the list, I guess?
What's on the list of
Like
what?
of potentials.
Of potentials?
Yeah.
Well, if I go into Letterboxd and I browse by release date, go to 1940s and any. We have Citizen Kane, which
Yep.
we've seen, Casablanca, which we've seen, It's a Wonderful Life, seen it, Rope, seen it, Bicycle Thieves, seen it, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Bambi,
Nah.
not super interested in any of those. Double Indemnity.
Oh, okay. That's another film noir.
I don't know anything about that, honestly.
I could be down for that.
Maybe
Compare the film noirs.
Red Shoes, The Third Man, Dumbo. Maybe watch Dumbo.
Meh.
Okay, I guess that closes the door on that. His Girl Friday, The Great Dictator.
Oh, maybe. That's supposed to be one of Charlie Chaplin's best.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay, well, maybe.
That and City Lights, I think.
Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Cat People.
I've heard good things about Cat People.
The Philadelphia Story.
Oh, that is Katharine Hepburn in it. I could be down for that.
Grapes of Wrath. The Shop Around the Corner.
Ooh,
that's the original of You Got Mail.
Yes, I've heard that's good.
I'm kind of interested in that.
Okay.
Anyway, all that to say, either Treasure of the Sierra Madre or Red Shoes might be next, but if we can fit another film in between just to make sure that the 1940s is properly spoken for, then I think we will.
A few of those sound intriguing. I'm sure we'll pick at least one of those for sure.
Absolutely.
It's nice chatting with you, Andrew. I love you.
Oh, it's great chatting with you too. You're going out of town for a couple of days, so I was excited to get some nice face-to-face time doing the podcast.
Absolutely. This is the only time we talk to each other.
Yeah, microphone's off. It's like, I don't even look at you. And by the way, shout out to our camera, which, said...
Shout out to our camera.
Yeah, it said it only had like a certain amount of battery life left. And I was like, it's probably going to die halfway through the episode. But it got to 0% like 10 minutes ago.
Really?
And it's just been like hanging on at 0% and hasn't shut off. And I'm very impressed by that.
That's amazing.
Thank you very much, camera. I appreciate you.
It does have quite a good battery life for sure.
Right on. All right. Well, catch you in the next episode. Thanks again so much for listening.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.